So I'm grateful to be here with all of you. Am I okay? Sorry. Hare Krishna. Am I audible behind? Thank you. So, many of you may know this verse. I'll talk about this verse today. How this seemingly negative verse is actually very positive. That's what will be the theme of today's talk. Let's recite the verse. I tell the meaning and then we can recite it a few times. So Krishna is saying, Ma upetya, those who worship me, those who attain me. Punarja. So let's see what this means in practical terms for us. So let's recite this a few times also. Mahapetya punarjanma dukkhalayam shashvatam nāpnuvanti mahatmanah samsiddhim paramāgatah mahapetya punarjanma dukkhalayam shashvatam nāpnuvanti mahatmanah samsiddhim paramāgatah. So, anyone would like to one Mataji? Would like to say? Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today, and I'm grateful especially to have an opportunity to serve Sri Vishnu Prabhu. He is one of my biggest inspirations whenever I come to America. If I can do a fraction of what he has done, sometimes I feel that wherever I go to America, I see devotees who are inspired by him. So all of America is like the Virat Rupa of Jiggle Kishore Prabhu. So I'm happy to be here. A small anga of that Virat Rupa now. So this particular verse which we're discussing today, it can be, for some people, seem to be a very, very pessimistic kind of verse. I was recently giving a talk in Stanford some time ago, and then one person said, I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, I liked it. But when I came to this verse, I felt such pessimistic. I don't want to read this. What is the use of it? So we try to understand what this verse means and how it applies in our life. And I talk about it broadly in 3 words. So this is the acronym, or not acronym, just 3 letters. Acknowledging, analyzing, and adopting. 3 things. If you understand, then we can look at what this verse is all about. Now, I often get to address diverse audiences. Sometimes it's people at interfaith forums, sometimes it is people who are in corporate companies at high level. People may have very different worldviews, very different traditional backgrounds, very different current lifestyles. But amid all such disagreements, there is one thing that almost everyone can agree about. That is, there's one agreement. What is that? Life is tough. No matter how wealthy somebody may be, how powerful somebody might be, how successful somebody might be, life is not easy for him. Life is not a cakewalk. It is not a bed of roses. Even a bed made of roses, roses also have thorns, isn't it? So life is tough. And whenever I speak this, almost everybody laughs and nods. But then when the same thing is stated as the world is a place of misery. No, that's too pessimistic. Life is tough, I agree. The world is a place of distress. No, that's too pessimistic. So why this difference? Because what happens is that we humans need to have hope to live. So we all have to acknowledge sooner or later the reality that life is tough. We can't deny it unless we are just insane and we live in our own alternative reality. Then also life is tough because others are not joining us in that reality. So life is tough for everyone. But the idea is, if we say the world is a place of distress, that means it seems to many people that we are denying the value or utility of human endeavor. That things can never change. Life is tough, but actually, what gives us hope, what gives us energy to wake up every day and strive, is that life can become better. And that we can play a part in making life better. That's what enables us to move forward. Whereas this statement of Kale, this world is a place of distress. Oh, that means whatever we do, nothing is going to make any difference. That is something which the human heart, the human spirit just can't accept. Because the human spirit is extremely resilient. That no matter how many times you're knocked down, you want to rise up, you want to fight. And those comprise some of the most inspiring stories in human history of people who suffered great adversities and still rose to do something meaningful, to do something wonderful. That's what inspires us. So when Krishna is saying life is, if we say Tukkale, what does this mean? Life is tough, everybody will agree. But when we say this means the world is a place of distress, that seems to cause problems. So it's just a matter of phrasing. Is Krishna's emphasis that this world is a place of distress and therefore you stay in distress? That is not the point of the verse. So it's acknowledging a reality that there are difficulties in life. And this is not just a teaching of some world-rejecting tradition from the East. This actually actually a universal teaching. In fact, in the biblical tradition, it is said the world is like a vale of tears. It's a place where we're going through constantly, there is distress over here. In the Buddhist tradition, dukkha is considered to be the first of the four noble truths. The Sanskrit dukkha is translated in Pali as dukkha, but they say it's the first noble truth. And of course, the Bhagavad Gita says that this world is dukkha. And this is not just some old philosophers who thought about it or old thinkers thought about it. Now we have science and technology. Now we don't think like this. No, when modern thinkers acknowledge this, the modern existentialist philosophers, Alberto Camus said that life is suffering. Therefore, the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. So now that is a very dark vision of the world. From life is suffering, like therefore let's end our life. That is a very dark way of looking at it. But the idea that there is distress in the world, it's something which any person with a little bit of experience in the world can acknowledge. So life is tough. Dukkha, if you say it means that, then everybody can accept that. So it's acknowledging an experienced reality, a universally experienced reality. So now, what does it mean literally? Does it mean that life is a place of distress and yes, you have to all live in distress? Well, if that were the meaning, let's look at it from the context of the Bhagavad Gita and the context of those who apply the Bhagavad Gita in their lives. In the context of the Bhagavad Gita itself, Arjuna is in tears. So I'm moving from A. First A was, do you remember what was it? No, first A. As acknowledge. Acknowledge the reality. Now, acknowledge the reality that life is tough or there is distress in the world. Now, second is analyze the cause of the distress. So, let's look at from the context of the Bhagavad Gita itself. Arjuna, at the start of the Gita, is in distress. He's in such distress, it is broken down publicly, he's in tears. And we just hear is Gandhi was slipping out and his tears were in eyes and his skin was drying up. But for a warrior like Arjuna to cry in public means he must have been in unbearable pain. Most people don't exhibit their emotions in public. Nobody wants to be called a crybaby. And Arjuna is a warrior. Warriors are trained to conceal any signs of weakness. And if such a warrior is breaking down publicly, that means he must be in immense pain. Now, at that point, Krishna starts speaking the Bhagavad Gita. And in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, same chapter, Krishna has come to Dukkha. He's quoting this verse. So Krishna would have said, Arjuna, this world is Dukkha. You are Dukhi, therefore Gita confirmed, Gita over. He could have completed that. Krishna doesn't do that. So the purpose of the Gita is not to say that because this world is a place of distress, therefore you stay in distress. Therefore be miserable. That is not the point of the Gita at all. And even if you consider from the perspective of the Gita itself, the Gita is like a jigsaw puzzle. But an ordinary jigsaw puzzle, you have to get all the pieces together, and when you put them together in one particular way, it all fits together. Maybe a map of America, map of the globe, map of the world, whatever comes out. But the Gita is a fascinating jigsaw puzzle, and you can fit it together in different ways, and still the same picture comes up. So different acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or Chakravarti Pad, or Ramanacharya, they all have put the Gita jigsaw puzzle together in different ways. And they've all come to the similar conclusion. I'll talk about the conclusion of the Gita a little later. But the point is, so Jiva Goswami analyzes the purpose of the Gita. And he says that the first words that Krishna speaks is in the first chapter. Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan Samavetan Kuruniti, that's 125. Then after that, in 2.2 and 2.3, Krishna just speaks some verses and more friendly to Arjuna. Don't give him to this weakness. But the first instructive verse that Krishna speaks to Arjuna is 2.11. Ashochan and Vashocastam Pragyavadam Shabhasase. So Ashochan, that means not worth lamenting. And the last verse that Krishna speaks is, he asks Arjuna, have you understood Kachideta Shrutam Partha? That is 1872. But before that, he's speaking the Falashruti, the glory of the Gita, from 1867 to 1871. The last instructive verse that Krishna speaks is Sarvadharman Parityaja. And the last word in that verse is Ma Shujaha. So the first word is Ashochan, and the last word is Ma Shujaha. So Jiva Goswami says that we can know what is the purpose of the book from a book by seeing what comes at the start of the book and what comes at the end of the book. It's just like if some speaker is a very organized speaker, then they start speaking, they say, today I want to speak about this topic. And then they spoke about this topic. So we can know this was what was. So yes, the start of the Gita is, it's not worth lamenting. And the end of the Gita is, do not lament. So he says the whole purpose of the Gita is to free Arjuna and free the world at large from lamentation. So that's why the Gita's message is not a message of negativity, that the world is a place of distress, so stay in distress. No. It's to, yes, the world may be a place of distress, but we can rise above distress. We can stop lamenting amid the distress of the world. So the Gita is not a book of negativity at all in that sense. So that's from the context of the Gita as well as the content of the Gita, if we analyze. But now from those who apply the Gita. India has been famous for, many of us are from India, the Gita was widely practiced in India. So India is famous for its culture of hospitality, of offering good facilities, warm welcome to a guest. Now suppose a guest comes to our house and the guest says, "No, I'm feeling very cold." Would we say, "What to do, Prabhu? The world is dukkhalaya." No decent person would say that. Even if they're just given a class, the world is dukkhalaya, they would not do that. Why? Because the Gita's message is not that every distress has to be immediately ascribed to the cause of the world, the place of distress. See, there are some distresses which are unavoidable and they have to be accepted. But we have to find the right cause for each event that happens. So this is what we can call as a frame of reference. And this is a key philosophical, if you remember this diagram, and even if you forget everything else from this class, this concept, it can tremendously help us in understanding how philosophy is to be applied. Suppose somebody says, "I'm feeling cold." Now there could be different levels of explanation. It could be that, "Oh, maybe I'm not very warm enough, clothes that are warm enough." It could be one explanation. Another could be, "Oh, this door window doesn't close properly, that's why the cold air is coming in from outside." Or it could be, "Hey, it's winter." It could also be that this part of the world is generally very cold. It could also be that because of climate change, the temperatures are dropping rapidly. And one explanation could be distress is inevitable in material existence. I was giving a class in Phoenix on the same topic. I showed the same diagram. The person said, "You missed out one fact." I said, "What?" "You may be having fever." That's why you're sure. So the same factor, same phenomena, same experience, the experience of the cold, this is a distressful experience, that could have various causes. And we need to analyze which is the most workable or actionable cause for us. Now, all of these may be true. If somebody is an environmental activist, and somebody is you could say, misdirected philosopher, they may say, "Oh, you're in distress, the world is a place of distress." And that's not the way that philosophy is. Somebody is an environmental activist, what happens is they say, "Oh, it's so cold. See, climate change is real. Those are climate deniers are terrible people." They may be terrible people, but I'm in cold, do something right now. This is not to go on a time to go on a climate change warpath. Okay, if somebody is feeling cold, give them some warm clothes, give them some blanket. So there are different ways in which distress can be dealt with. And the Gita's teaching is not at all that all distress is to be accepted as unavoidable because the world is a place of distress. So, what is Krishna telling Arjuna? The implication of this verse in the Gita's context, in our context, we'll discuss. But in the Gita's context, let's see that Krishna doesn't say this world is dukkhalaya. So therefore, whatever atrocities Kauravas have done towards you, just accept that. No, they tried to burn Bhima alive, except that. They tried to poison Bhima, they tried to burn your mother alive, they tried to dishonor Draupadi. It's all part of the dukkha of this world. Just accept that. That's not the best of the Gita. Why not? Because each event has to be ascribed to the right cause. Right means what is the most actionable cause for us right now. So the Gita implies. So now, when something happens to us, when do we escalate its cause to like, this world is dukkha, and I can't do anything about it. So that is also one explanation. But when do we do that? That is where we go back to, as I talk about Buddhism. Buddhism says that now Buddha's teachings in many ways are very similar to the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. In the broad Upanishadic tradition, Buddha's teachings are very simple. But what happens in the Gita, in the Buddha's teachings, he doesn't talk much about spiritual reality. The analysis of the material world is quite similar. And Buddhism is also a part of the broad family of dharmic religions. So here it is that that dukkha is the first noble truth of the world, of life. And we say, what is noble about the truth? You say, it's a terrible truth. Even if it's truth, it's a harsh truth, it's an unpalatable truth. So why is it called as a noble truth? And the Gita also says that those who accept the dukkhalaya and they act accordingly, and they act based on that, they become Mahatmas. So what is the implication of this truth is not just that this world is a place of distress, so showing distress. If we accept that life is tough, we can prepare in two ways for it. There are two ways to deal with life's distress. There is means and there is meaning. So we deal with life's problems by improving our outer resources. It may be financial resources, it may be technological resources. And that is one way to deal with distress. Arjuna, as a warrior, trained himself rigorously in his particular profession. That was archery. And that was a means. It was, in one sense, it was technical, say something like technological. He knew sophisticated ways of fighting. So when we have to deal with distress, means are important in their own way. However, means are not the only way to deal with distress. Meaning is also required. That is the most important inner resource. Means how to deal with this. And meaning, you can say, why to deal with this. So, at the start of the Bhagavad Gita, what happened to Arjuna? Did he have the means to deal with distress? Yes, he had. Arjuna was a great enough archer to defeat the opponents. In fact, he had defeated all the opponents all alone without the support of any army just recently. When was that? Yeah, in the Virati, the battle at Virat. So he was not lacking in means. But what was he lacking in? Meaning. Is this worth fighting? Nacha shaknomi avasthatum brahmativa cha me mana nimittani cha pashyami viparitam kesha. I was thinking, even if I win, what will I gain? I would have lost my relatives, not just lost them, I would have killed my relatives. And is any kingdom worth it? I'm not sure. I don't think so. So he didn't see the point of fighting. So it was not a loss of means that had caused the distress to Arjuna. It was the loss of meaning that overwhelmed. Most of us, when we face distress in life, we often feel I don't have the means. I don't have a big enough house where we can all stay comfortably. I don't have a fast enough car. I don't have enough a job that pays me now. Or I don't have an education that can give me a good job, whatever. We often feel that we lack means. And we all work to improve our means. And that is fine. So even improving the means requires hard work. Or acquiring the means. Nothing is easy in the world. Life is tough. That means getting even the outer resources to deal with life's problems requires hard work. And in doing the hard work, to either find means or to find meaning, we become a better person. We become more responsible. We become more committed. we manifest our talents, we translate our talent into achievements. So that is how this accepting that this world is a place of distress and I have to acquire the resources to deal with it, that can be ennobling. It can transform us positively. If we can actually recognize that, yes, life is going to be tough, I will prepare for it. However, what happens is, there are two different things over here. If we consider to be like a quadrant, there are means and meaning. The worst situation is where the person has neither means nor meaning. The person is poverty stricken and they're all alone, they have no meaning in their life, they will just become suicidal, or they may become homicidal, they may become genocidal. People who have no sense of meaning in their life, they will just live unhappy, miserable. They will do things which will make themselves miserable. Actually, far more dangerous is to have means without meaning, in one sense. They have external things, but then they don't have any internal meaning. Many people commit suicide not because they are so poverty stricken. It is because they lost their sense of meaning in life. What am I living for? What is worth living for? So, in Germany now, the government has officially recognized as a fundamental right of every citizen the right to commit suicide. It's tragic. It's ironic that Germany also has a social welfare program where they spend a lot of taxpayers' money to have helplines for suicide prevention. That is, I'm thinking of committing suicide. Oh, come here, you'll talk with me. But if somebody decides, I want to commit suicide, you know, a psychiatrist, you are not doing anything, you are yourself taking the decision to commit suicide. Then the government will use taxpayers' money to painlessly help the person commit suicide. This is tragic. In fact, one inventor in Europe has developed something called a suicide pod. Suicide pod means it's like a bed inside which you lie down and the bed closes and it gives toxic gas, and within 30 seconds you die. So he says, we are using technology. He's very proud. We are using technology to empower people. Just see the language. We are using technology to empower people to fulfill their right to die with dignity. So it's so sad. See that when there is no meaning in life, people may want to just end their life. And they have means, but they're creating means to act on their meaninglessness. It's unfortunate. So now if we consider, if somebody has meaning but no means, it can be frustrating, but the person can deal with it. You know, if somebody is very poor, somebody is very sick. Now health is like a means if somebody is very sick. But if they have a purpose to live, you know, I want to get well and I want to do this, this is what I'm going to live for. There's one of the classic books from the last century, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a doctor, a psychiatrist who was a Jew and caught in the concentration camps of Hitler. And he said the people who survived over there were not necessarily the people who were the fittest. The people who survived through Hitler's concentration camps were the people who had the strongest sense of meaning in their life. You know, I want to live on because this is what I want to do in my life. So that means resilience. Resilience means that life may knock us down, but we rise up again. That's resilience. Now the best situation is we have both means and meaning. That we have internal sense of meaning. What is my life all about? And externally, we have the resources to act with it. So why am I talking about this over here? Because the Bhagavad Gita's focus is on helping us to find meaning. In today's world, there is an enormous expansion of means. The kind of means, the kind of facilities, resources we have today, even common people have today, are something which even royalty a few hundred years ago could not imagine. We have telecommunication, we have air transport, we have so many things, we have air conditioning. Yes, these are extraordinary means. But what is terribly lacking is meaning. And that is what the Gita provides. So now I talked about acknowledging and analyzing. Now, analyzing the cause of suffering. And then last is adopting. Adopting a meaningful purpose for our life. So why is this important? Because going back to that particular example of dukkhalaya. What does dukkhalaya literally mean? Place of distress, place of dukkha. Now let's consider an analog to it. There's the word Himalaya. What does it mean? Place of ice. It specifically refers to the mountain range in the northern part of India. It's filled with ice. Now, if somebody goes to the Himalayas and they start complaining, it's so cold, it's so cold, it's so cold. The people around them, what you are saying is growing so old now. Yeah, it's cold. What else do you expect in the Himalayas? But is that all that is there in the Himalayas? No. No, there is flora and fauna, there are breathtaking sights of natural beauty. There are opportunities to achieve something spectacular, climb up high mountain peaks. From a material perspective, people may want to achieve something which so many people will achieve. From a spiritual perspective, we want to go to high ups, normally inaccessible sacred places like Adipatri, and we want to offer our prayers there. There is so much more we can do over there. But if somebody is going to the Himalayas, they have to reset their baseline expectation. It's going to be cold. Stop complaining about the cold. And now, okay, it's cold, but what can I do over here? There are so many things to do. I can see this site, I can go to that, I can go to that particular, I can see this site or go to that site. SIGHT, SIT. So both. I can do a lot over here. But okay, stop complaining that it's cold. Now, that does not mean that you have to, okay, you can wear warm clothes, you can do whatever is required, but get over it. Think of something bigger. Similarly, when Krishna is saying this world is dukkhalaya, it does not mean that all of us have to forever stay in misery. It means that everybody will have problems in life. So stop complaining about the problems. Stop expecting a problem-free life. Stop expecting or fantasizing about a problem-free life. Instead of seeking to be problem-free, seek to be purposeful. Seek a purpose that will make the problems bearable. In the Himalayas, if somebody doesn't want to go there, they go there. They didn't want to be there. I'm feeling so cold. Why am I here? But if somebody wanted to be there, then what happens is, yeah, I want to climb up. I want to experience this. Like, see, purpose can transform the quality of our experience. If somebody suddenly comes and gives us, okay, this is a 30 kg bag, 2 30 kg bags over there, carry them from here to there. Says, what? You think I'm a coolie? I don't want to do that. They force us to do it, we feel very resentful. But the same person goes to a gym, and what happens? They carry weights. Not only they carry weights, they happily carry weights. Not only they happily carry weights, they pay the gym to give them weights to carry. Why? Because here we can see a purpose. Why did you tell me to carry these bags? But here, I'm going to become fitter. So even when we are carrying, whether we are carrying suitcases or whether we are carrying dumbbells, it's not a pleasant experience. But when we have a purpose, then it transforms, you could say, transforms how we experience that experience. We don't focus on, oh, this is so heavy and I'm in so much pain. We focus on, through this, I'm going to become fitter. So the Gita says that if we think that if we make the purpose of our life to become happy, we'll sooner or later be frustrated. Because somewhere or the other, some problem will keep coming up. So rather than thinking of trying to make our life problem-free, or rather defining happiness as a state of being free from problems, that is never going to happen. Because this world is dukkha. But that doesn't mean that we can't find happiness. We can find happiness if we redefine happiness. Not as a state of being free from problems, but as a state of having a meaningful purpose that can fill us with a sense of fulfillment. Let's try to understand this. Now we may say, how do you find such meaning? We all have certain levels of meaning. When say a couple has a child, taking care of a child is difficult. Child can wake up any time and cry at any time. But there's also meaning, there's fulfillment. Oh, this life depends on me. I can take care of this child, I can nurture this life. So we can accept even problems if we can place them within a meaningful framework. So how do we find meaning? So we may all have our sense of meaning. Okay, I want to grow up and I want to become wealthy. That's the meaning of my life. But we become wealthy and we find that, oh, I thought wealthy makes me happy. If I'm wealthy, I'm not happy. What happened? I thought I want to have a relationship with somebody good and I want to be happy with that. Either our relationship turned out to be disappointing. What happened? So we all have certain purposes in our life. We all have certain things that give us meaning. But the problem is that many of the sources of meaning that we have, they themselves can become shattered. If somebody's whole sense of meaning comes from, okay, I am an engineer or I am a businessman, and suppose they lose their job, their business collapses, then who am I? What is my identity? What is the worth of my life? So we need an enduring sense of meaning and purpose. For all of us, there are times when things can go wrong, terribly wrong. And how do we find meaning? So meaning can be at two levels. When we face problems, we try to make sense of those problems. Now, why is this happening? Like I said earlier, there's a different levels of causation. That anything I'm feeling cold. Why am I feeling cold? I could do different levels of causation. So like that, we try to make sense of something. Okay, if this problem is coming, why is this problem coming? So we try to analyze. Now, many times if we analyze, we can make sense of suffering and we can deal with the suffering. Okay, if somebody's health is going down, why is it going down? Maybe I'm eating unhealthy, maybe I'm not exercising, maybe my lifestyle is not very healthy. So change my lifestyle, become healthy. But sometimes what happens is, we cannot make sense of the suffering. Somebody may be having very healthy habits and still they get cancer. So then what do we do with that? So how do we find meaning at that time? So even if we can't make sense of suffering, we can make sense in suffering. Make sense in suffering means that not why is this happening, but what can I do in this situation to make things better. To make things better. To give an example for this, say that each one of us can actually, we may not always be able to make sense. Why did this happen to me? Okay, I'm trying to live a good life. There's one comedian who said, thinking that because we are good to the world will be good to us. Is the thinking, because I'm a vegetarian, a wild bull will not attack me. The bull doesn't care whether I'm a vegetarian or not. The wild bull. So the world has its nature. Whether we are a good person or a bad person, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi will come to everyone. So sometimes we cannot make sense of suffering. What is it? We have to make sense in suffering. What does it mean? Let's take an example. Suppose a firefighter is facing a giant fire. Now I have who are firefighters. So the first question they ask is, why did this fire occur? They try to make sense of the problem. But sometimes they can't figure out the cause. Is this caused by an explosion? Is this arson? Is this caused by somebody's carelessness? What exactly happened? Even if they can't make sense of what caused the fire, but they can say, what can I do to extinguish the fire? Or at least make sure that there are a lot of properties, there are a lot of people over it. We don't want the fire to go over it. So when we face suffering, we can try to analyze the cause of the suffering, like various levels of causes. We use it to try to analyze. But sometimes we just can't. we can't figure out the cause. At that time, what do? We focus on what can I do to make things better. We can't make sense of suffering, but we can make sense in suffering. And this is what essentially Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. See, for Arjuna, the suffering is, how can I fight against Bhishma and Drona? They're my elders, they're my relatives, I respect them. Now, Krishna doesn't go into any past life explanation, you were this person, this life, and Bhishma was this person, they did this, and that's why I'm in this situation. Krishna says, no. This is sometimes, you see what you can do to make things better. You think that you are the well-wisher of Bhishma and Drona, you don't want them to die. Okay, but Krishna says, I am their even greater well-wisher. Suhridam sarvabhutana gyatva mam shanti mrichyati. He says, you are thinking that by not killing them, you will be acting as their well-wisher. But everybody has to die sooner or later. I can see that in living, they are in great suffering because they have to fight, they're obligated to fight on a side where their heart is not there. Says, you do your duty, you will free them from the situation, you will free them from this obligation. And because they are virtuous souls, they will be elevated to a higher destination. So my plan will actually do more good for them than what you think you should do. So don't resent the problem. See what we can do to deal with the problem. See what we can do to make things better. Now, for making things better, sometimes we can understand the cause of the problem. And understanding the cause of the problem can be helpful. But sometimes, if we can't understand the cause of the problem, then we can say, okay, this world distress sometimes comes around so much, the world is dukkha. But what can I do to make things better? So the focus is not on the problem. If you consider a pendulum, one is denying the problem. The other side is, this world is not a place of distress. Everything is wonderful. You are so pessimistic. That is, one is denying the problem. The other is obsessing over the problem. Why did this happen to me? Why is this problem there? Why is this problem there? In between is focusing on what we can do to make things better. So that is the thrust of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna that you act in a way that you are facing the suffering of fighting against your relatives, but you can't make sense of the suffering, but you can make sense in the suffering. So for all of us, that's what it is. Srila Prabhupada, when he came from India to America, he had tried so much in India to try to share Krishna Bhakti, but somehow nobody seemed to be interested, or people at least not seriously interested. For them, practicing bhakti was like a ritual. And when so Prabhupada said that, and Prabhupada's sponsor, who became my sponsor, Sukti Moraji, Prabhupada told her that he would like to go to Swami, if you want to speak the Bhagavatam, you can come to my house. Every day I will hear Bhagavatam. But Prabhupada didn't want that kind of ritual hearing of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada wants someone who would commit themselves to living the principles of the Bhagavatam in a serious sadhaka kind of ways. So, what did Prabhupada do? Nothing worked. He said, okay, my purpose is to share Krishna's message. Not in India, then where else can I go? And that's why he kept finding a way. So, Prabhupada did not go into elaborate sociological analysis of why Indians are not taking up Bhakti. He did not go into, what is American sociology? Are they interested? Let me try what I can. So, make sense, Amrit something. And then, see, we can't control the distresses that come in our life. But we can control the meaning we find in those distresses. So what do we mean the meaning? Sometimes some distresses just don't make sense. So there is an old Upanishadic saying that actually whenever you are happy, you should be unhappy. And whenever you are unhappy, you should be happy. What does this mean? It means whenever you are happy, and see, our situations in life are often determined by our past karma. So it's like we have a past stockpile of good karma and a past stockpile of bad karma. So when we are happy, that means our past stockpile of good karma is getting exhausted. So when we are happy, we should be unhappy. Oh, my past good karma is getting exhausted. And when we are unhappy, we should be happy. Why? Exactly. So if we are unhappy, that means our past stockpile of negative karma is getting exhausted. So the idea is, I'm not saying whenever you're happy, start being unhappy. That's not the point. The point is that there's not only one way of looking at things. And if we think, oh, I had some negative karma and that is getting exhausted now. So let me bear with it, it will go right over. So, but if our purpose in life is simply to experience pleasure, then when suffering comes and suffering is unavoidable, what am I to do? What am I even living for? But if we are living not just for experiencing pleasure, but for doing something meaningful in our life, then what happens is, okay, the suffering has come, it's not a pleasant thing, but I can continue with my life's purpose. That's why Sampade Vipade, Bhakti Thakur says, whether I'm having prosperity or adversity, I will chant the holy names, I will serve Krishna. So for a devotee, we all can have multiple purposes, but we can use our intelligence to find the right meaning for whatever situation there is. In the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj is cursed to die in 7 days. It's an extremely unfair curse. It's very disproportionate. It's a small mistake and a huge punishment. But Parikshit Maharaj, he finds me. He says, oh, actually, I was attached. And this is the arrangement of Lord Hari to free me from this attachment. So what is he doing? He's placing this event in the right way. He's not thinking, this small Shringi boy, who does he think he is? He can curse the. That is where our intelligence is required. And if we try to practice bhakti diligently, then Krishna will give us the intelligence to place our particular events, whatever are happening, in the right framework. So I was talking with one senior devotee recently. I was asking, sometimes when we give classes, the audience is just not interested. So what do we do at that time? It's very easy to become discouraged. So he said to me that when the audience is not interested, you see that speaking as a practice for future occasions and the audience is going to be interested. So I thought that was very good. It is simple, but it's just because it's a trick of mind. It's not a trick of the mind. It's actually using our intelligence to maintain our enthusiasm for serving Krishna. So if we are practicing bhakti and we find, we are trying to do some seva and there's some person who is constantly obstructing us, it's like very disagreeable, seems to be making our life miserable. So you may say, no, why should I even do this seva? And we say, I just want to give it, quit. But you can also say, actually, Krishna is giving me an opportunity here to show myself this attitude. Even amid difficulties, I continue, sir. We can always see things in a way that is constructive for our life. And that intelligence Krishna will give us. So we all can find it at different levels. But the ultimate meaning is that each one of us, as Krishna said, Mamai Mam Sho Jivaluki. We're all parts of Krishna. And that means we all can play a part in Krishna's purpose. Krishna is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He wants the best for everyone. So practicing bhakti is not just chanting Hare Krishna and turning away from the world and running away from the world. That is not bhakti. That's we turn away from the world, but we turn away from the world so that we turn toward Krishna. But after we, with that connection within our heart, when we turn back to the world to act bhakti, we become an instrument of Krishna's wisdom and Krishna's compassion. So that we can do our part in making the world a better place, or at least our corner of the world a better place. And sometimes we may succeed in that, sometimes we will not succeed much in that. But in that endeavor, we will take our heart to a better place. Our heart will go closer to Krishna internally. We'll start experiencing His presence more. And ultimately, our heart will attain Krishna to be with Him eternally. Just as Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Sanjay also spoke the Bhagavad Gita. To whom? Dhritarashtra. Now, I always had this question that the Gita could have ended at 1873, whereas after Krishna speaks, Arjuna speaks, it's over there. But the Gita has 5 more verses. So why does Sanjay's words included over there? Actually, through Sanjay's words, Gita's teachings are being demonstrated in the Gita itself. What do I mean by that? See, Sanjay speaks the same words to Dhritarashtra. Krishna speaks those words and Arjuna's heart is transformed. Sanjay speaks those words, but Dhritarashtra's heart is not transformed. So we say Sanjay's mission was a failure. Not exactly. Dhritarashtra's heart was not transformed, but Sanjay's own heart was transformed. Rishyami cha muhurmuhu, rishyami cha punah punah. In 1876 and 1877 he says that just by speaking the Gita, what has happened is his heart has become enriched with the remembrance of Krishna's words and Krishna's form. And that's why he is thrilled. So in serving Krishna, sometimes whatever services they are doing will actually have tangible external results, where things will become better in the outward. But if we are trying to serve Krishna, even if things don't change externally, things will change internally. Our heart will become enriched with Krishna's presence. And that is the enduring success. So the Gita says this world is dukkhalaya, but that does not mean we have to be dukkhi. Rather than seeking pleasure in the world, we can seek purpose. How can I serve Krishna in this situation? And if the stronger we become situated in that purpose, the stronger we'll be connected with Krishna in our heart. And we will experience fulfillment, we will experience satisfaction, even if there's no external source of satisfaction. Sanjay's example demonstrates Krishna's power to provide happiness even in the absence of success. Sanjay's speech to Arjuna was not, to Dhritarashtra was not successful. There was no success, but still there was happiness. And that is how Krishna helps us to rise above the distress of the world. Ashuchan, Mashuchaha. How does it happen? When we are always fixed in the purpose of serving Krishna, then we rise above the distresses of the world. Srila Prabhupada came to America in 1966. Suppose something had happened and he had not been successful in establishing Krishna consciousness. Still his life would have been a success. Those who met Srila Prabhupada in 1966, if we look at his life from a material perspective, almost everything that he did, it was a failure. He tried to start League of Devotees, it didn't work. He tried to work back to what it didn't work. He tried to work with his godbrother, it didn't work. He tried to have his business at multiple places, it didn't work. So a person who experiences so many failures could naturally be bitter or resentful. And he could say, I was doing all this for Krishna and still it didn't work. Why is that? But those who met Srila Prabhupada, even in those early times, 1965, 1966, when he was just an unknown Swami walking on the streets of America, of New York, they noticed that Prabhupada was strikingly peaceful and sublimely joyful. So Howard Wheeler, Hagrid, who says that, he met Prabhupada on the streets of New York. There's giant lorries walking by. They make such a noise that people were shouting, but Prabhupada was just calm, as if nothing is happening. So this Swami is situated in some other place. His feet may be here, but his heart is somewhere else. So because Prabhupada was not obsessed with external success. He naturally wanted that because he wanted that to offer to Krishna, wanted to offer that to Krishna, offer that to his Guru Maharaj. But his success was, even in the absence of outer success, his heart was placed with Krishna. He was with Krishna and therefore he was happy. And that is how we all can rise above the distress of the world by connecting with Krishna in a mood of service. That is the ultimate teaching of the Buddha. Karishe vachanam tava. Adhyana says, I will do your will. When we have this Krishna, I will do your will. I will you want to make things better. You are the well-wisher of everyone. So I will act in a way that has to make things better. But a small thing that I try to do in a way that will make things better. If you focus on that, in a mood of service to Krishna, we will find that we will at least take our heart to a better place. We will become joyful, even if the world around us is distressful. So I'll summarize. I spoke broadly on 3 points today. What are the 3 A's? Acknowledge, analyze, and act. So acknowledge means that this world is a place of distress, is just a reality. That life is tough, that is something we all accept. So that's what is being phrased a different way over here. Don't deny that there are problems in life, acknowledge it. That's what various wisdom traditions and modern philosophers have acknowledged that. But then, that doesn't mean we all are to just every problem, this world is a place of distress. Analyze the cause. Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna that you are in distress, so stay in distress, because this world is a place of distress. No, problems can have various causes, and we try to find a functional cause and deal with it. But sometimes, despite our analysis or despite our endeavors, some problems just can't be solved. Some problems have to be lived with. That time we accept this world in dukkha. So that we can have means and meaning for dealing with problems. But sometimes means just don't work. Either we don't have the means or the means don't work. That's when we need a meaning that is big enough to power us in spite of the presence of the problems. So the analysis is to understand, okay, whenever I'm facing a problem, which frame should I fit it in? How should I see this problem constructively, actionably? And then last was, we adopt. Adopt means we find adopt a meaningful purpose for ourselves. A purpose can change the quality of our experience. We lift weights, I told to lift weights, we are annoyed. But we go to gym and lift weights, we feel enlightened. So similarly, if we have a purpose big enough that I am doing something meaningful in my life, I'm a part of Krishna and I am serving Krishna to help make the world a better place and to take my part to a better place, then even if problems are there, they will become bearable. Instead of denying problems as one extreme of the pendulum or obsessing over problems, we focus on a purpose that can raise us above problems. And when Sanjay is absorbed in the purpose of sharing Krishna's message and then remembering Krishna's message, then he rises above the distress of his message being ineffective for the Dhritarashtra. And he finds happiness even in the absence of success. And similarly, we all, if we stay fixed in a mood of service to Krishna in all situations, then we will also rise above the distress of the world. And thus Dukkhālaya Shāshvata is actually a message of positivity. It is a message of adopting a positive purpose to transcend the distress of the world. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We have time for questions. Any questions? Yes, please. You have a question? No, okay. Yes.
So this is regarding finding purpose in life. There is some like universal purposes, like going back to Godhead is a purpose for everybody. And then there is the other aspect of purpose, making this world a better place. So making this world a better place, there could be a number of different things that one may do there. One may think about book distribution or population or so many different things that one may do to contribute towards making the world better. So how does one find what is the purpose for oneself in there?
Okay. So how do we find our purpose? Yeah, 2-3 things. First is that there are only 2 verses in the Bhagavad Gita which Krishna repeats, more or less. Manmana Bhavan Bhakto, that is 934 and 1865. And the other is Shreyan Swadharma Guna Paradharma Sunushtas, 335 and 1847. So Krishna's idea is that we have a material nature and we have a spiritual nature. So Man Mana Bhav is about acting in harmony with our spiritual nature. And Shreyan Swadharma Viguna is about acting in harmony with our material nature. So Krishna wants us to do both. So when we have a service attitude, we have that. My intention in life is to serve Krishna. That is acting in harmony with our spiritual nature. But how do I serve Krishna? That is based on the resources I have, the interests I have, the talents that I have. So with Swadharma doesn't literally mean necessarily that we have to put ourselves in one of the 4 boxes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Well, that is one frame of reference for people to be engaged according to their nature. That is one social structure. Whether that applies to today's world, that's open to question. It may not. The social structure may not be supported. But what is the underlying principle of the Chaturvarya system? Guna karma vibhagasha. Krishna says qualities are more internal, karma activities are external. So guna karma vibhagasha means that we look at our own life and internally we look at what is it that we feel comfortable doing. And externally, what are we competent at doing? So guna, if we have the qualities of something, then we'll feel comfortable doing it. If we have the karma for doing something, we'll be competent at doing it. So by self-observation, gradually we can find out what is our guna and karma. And we may be doing a spectrum of activities. We don't necessarily have to make a radical change in our service or our profession or our social roles. But we can gradually gravitate toward that which is more in harmony with our that which we are comfortable with and that we are competent at. That way we can gradually find our purpose. It's Krishna does not want us to be like robots. That is not that Krishna has already defined a straight path for us. Only when we go on that path, we are fulfilling our purpose. And Krishna's purpose is more like a direction than a path. He has given us free will. And he wants us to use our free will. He has given us intelligence. He wants us to use our intelligence. So, you could put another way is that, say, if there is a billionaire father, and the billionaire father gives a very expensive maybe a violin or a piano or a musical instrument to their son, the child. And the child wants to ask the father, how can I please you? What can I do to please you? I've given you this expensive gift. Use it. Use it. I know that you have the musical talents. Use it and become a good musician. Isn't it? So similarly, whatever interests we have, whatever talents we have, whatever resources we have, they are the gifts given to us by Krishna. So we don't have to go around the world exploring what should I be doing to please Krishna. The gifts that he has given us, use them. So first, understand what gifts we have and then use them. And if we use them naturally, the one who has given us those gifts will be pleased. If we use them in a mood of service to him. Yes.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. I think you have written a book called Recession Opportunity Adversity.
Yeah.
So, as you know, most of the people that recession might be coming soon next year. We are already in recession. So, if in brief, you can give some your explanation about it, so that if you want to read the book, or what is the opportunity in the recession?
Okay. So if recession comes again, well, and I wrote that book, Recession, there's one devotee had told me that this could be widely distributed because there are people afflicted by recession. But then what happened was they tried to do it in one company. The devotee only owned the company. But all the employees started thinking that we are going to be fired, and the preparation for that, this book is being given to us. So people have their own way of finding meaning in something. So, but I talk about probably three things in that book, three principles: simplify, clarify, and purify. So basically, simplify is sattva-guna, clarify is transcendence, and purify is bhakti. So whatever problems we face in life, if we try to simplify our lives, do I need these things or not need these things? We'll find that there are many ways in which we can live simply. So living simply does not necessarily mean living in poverty. But what it means is that are the things that I possess, am I using them or are they being used? Are they using me? Am I possessing them or are they possessing me? Let's simplify. Things are possessing me, maybe I don't need them. Then clarify is that we can't just simplify because if we have a materialistic worldview. So clarify, I talk about that is what are the things that are truly important for me. And for that, if we introspect, we observe our own life, self-observation can help us truly understand what is it that is important for me. And then there will be many things important for us, but we may not be able to give them due importance. I may say that, reading Bhagavad Gita is important for me. But every day, in the times that we're in Bhagavad Gita, my hand goes to the phone and look at the news, I look at social media. So then what happens is, purify is, we need to strengthen the positive influences within us and weaken the negative influences. So now we may say, what has all this got to do with recession? The point is that recession is certainly an acute problem, but it is a manifestation. The problem due to recession that come, they increase when we are inordinately dependent on the world. We say, of course, we are dependent on the world. We have to have a job. We have to source of value. Of course, that is there. But at the same time, if we are inordinately dependent, that means we all need money. But some people equate their net worth with their self-worth. And then for them, a loss of a job is not just a loss of job. It's like a loss of their self-identity itself. And that can be very damaging. Yes, if something, we hope that nobody loses a job. If somebody loses, yeah, okay, I lost it, I can find another job. But if our net worth, self-worth is also net worth, then we become too dependent. And then we become very shaken. So these basically I present that simplify, clarify, purify as a way of implementing the Gita's teaching that stay equipoised. It is not that don't be concerned about the world, but don't be too dependent on the world. Like for resources, we can be dependent on the world. We have to be. But for our soul identity and self-worth, we don't have to be dependent on the world. So through simplify, clarify, purify, we will get a buffer between us and the world. So the shocks of the world won't shock us so much. That's the broad theme of the book. Okay. Thank you. And last question? Any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Okay. Yeah. You can speak louder or I'll repeat.
Prabhuji, thank you for the very enlightening lecture. One thing that I was thinking about is that finding meaning in suffering and finding meaning of suffering. So, of suffering is that you're wondering about why it happened. In suffering, what I can do. So that it seems, that as I understood, was that one is the retrospection aspect of it, and one is the forward-seeing aspect of it. That why it happened is, especially if I look at the example of the firefighter. So if he were to think why it is happening, then it very purpose could be to just be upset about it, but the other purpose could be to see why it happened and whether there can be something done so it does not repeat.
Exactly.
And similarly, the other aspect is, of course, that what I can do so that I can make this immediate situation better. So, I mean, as long as, if I understand correctly, as long as someone is not looking at the situation with the intention of just being upset and not doing anything, both looking in and off are equally important aspects of looking at any situation.
Good point. Good point. So, shouldn't we try to do both, finding the meaning of suffering and meaning in suffering? Yes, agreed. The point is that we want to get as much understanding as possible before we deal with the situation, or even when we deal with the situation. But sometimes we have to deal with situations without enough understanding.
Yes.
And at that time, if we obsess only on the fact, why is this happening? That can drain our energy.
Yes.
So that is humility in the intellectual domain. That what means that even if I can't make sense of things, still I will act in a mode of sense. I'll try to make sense in things. So we have to see for ourselves, both making sense of things, making sense in things. They are resources for us. And we have to see which resource works for me when. So sometimes making sense of things can help us deal with the problem and understand it better and analyze it better. Sometimes in trying to make sense of things, we get caught in the past and we get lost. And sometimes making sense in things, it can help us to deal with problems which we can't make sense of also. But sometimes in trying to make sense of make sense in things, we may never think about the big picture. We might just be trying to go for quick fixes. That's also possible. But the specific situation I was talking about is Prabhupada talks about this is a devotee may be perplexed, but a devotee is never discouraged. What he means by that is sometimes even a devotee may not be able to make sense. Why is this happening? Prabhupada is saying when he comes to America, he says, Krishna, you must have some purpose. I don't know what it is, but you must have some purpose over it. He says, make me dance. So there are times when we may not be able to know why something is happening in our life. We may be perplexed. So perplexed means to not know what to do. To be discouraged means to feel like not doing anything at all. I quit. So we could say one definition of intelligence is to know what to do when we don't know what to do. Now, how is that possible? It means that, say, if we are driving along a road and our Google Map is saying that we have arrived, but I don't see anything over here. What happened? So when we don't know what to do, then ask somebody who's seen the life. When we don't know what to do, to know what to do when we don't know what to do. So there are some times situations, okay, in this situation, why did I land up over here? This person is so angry with me, and I don't think I would have ever done anything to hurt this person. Why is this person so angry? So when somebody is angry, we may perplex at that time. We don't know what to do. But to know what to do at that time, okay, if this person is angry, there's no point in my getting angry and fighting back. Then let me just walk away, try to get some information, and then let this person calm down. Maybe so to know what to do when we don't know what to do. That is intelligence. And that's what Krishna in one sense gives Arjuna that. Krishna doesn't really go into a historical or philosophical explanation of why Arjuna is caught in that situation. Krishna just says that you do my will and things will become better. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Thank you very much. Hare.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so
Prabhuji,
much.
if it is not too late, I have a small comment from your writings, Prabhuji.
Can I speak a little bit about this? Yes. So, as I mentioned, I have written a few books during this pandemic. I wrote these 3 books on the Gita. So, much of what I spoke today, you can find in this book. This is 365 meditations on the Bhagavad Gita for daily mindfulness. So, there's one section on growing through life's adversities. About 50-60 articles are there. And then there are similar articles on sections like how to think more positive, how to be more sensitive in our communication, how to see Krishna in our daily lives, how to resist temptation. So there are 365 articles, and the table of contents is 20 pages. So you can choose whichever article you want, and you can just jump to that article. But this is a Gita study approach from an applicational perspective. And these two are a part of a Gita study series. So this is Relishing Bhagavad Gita. This approaches the Gita from a relational perspective. That means the Gita is not just a book of philosophy. It is an expression of the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. So Krishna's loving concern for Arjuna, how will he express through the Gita? So if you want to appreciate how the Gita is a book of bhakti and Krishna's loving heart is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita, and how the Bhagavad Gita is connected with many stories in the Mahabharata, that is all you can find in this book, Relation Bhagavad Gita. It has 100 articles and about 80 illustrations. Each article is placed like an answer to a question and answer. So like some of the diagrams you saw here in the 4 quadrants and pendulums, like that there are illustrative diagrams in this book. And this approaches, the first book approaches Gita from an applicational perspective. This is from a relational perspective. And this is from a rational perspective. It means when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we may get certain questions. Krishna says, be detached from the fruits of our work. And won't that make us apathetic, irresponsible? How can we function? If Krishna controls everything, then do we really have free will? Or for that matter, if Krishna is equal to everyone, then why is he taking the side of Arjuna and not Duryodhana? So what exactly are the modes? What exactly is karma? Is everything destined? So questions like these, again, 100 articles, 80 illustrations are in this book also. So these 3 books are available. So each of these 3 are 15, and this is 25. But together, if you take them, it's for 40 instead of 50. Right? No, 45 instead of 55. So you can have these books, and we have Zelle, PayPal, other things also. You can let us scan and take. If you want, you can sign the books also. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, I'm on the way, and he comes now. We came up 3 years.
Yeah, after the pandemic.
Yes, and he's also traveling monk. This is the request by taking these books and applying them in your life. Thank you.